I'm a self-promoter. I'm a very good-looking guy. I'm an idol to some. I'm a brainless idiot. I'm your daddy. I'm a psychopath. I'm unstable. I'm a curmudgeon's curmudgeon. I'm an animal. I'm a tyrant. I'm a physical peon. But I'm a man. I'm incompetent with women. I'm one of the great Casanovas of all time. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a coward. I'm a nut job.
Welcome to Termini Crashes Out, an NBA podcast with Justin Termini, brought to you by DCLA. And now it's time for Termini to crash out.
All right, Germany crashing out, not crashing out like the Denver Nuggets. Let's be honest, that's an absolute embarrassment after you lose Dante DiVincenzo and Anthony Edwards. And the biggest question that you had coming into the day, right? 112-96, by the way, that's the final score. Denver falls to Minnesota. They're now down 3-1 in the series. Now, they've been known to come back from 3-1 down in the past. They did it down in the bubble, if you recall, against Doc Rivers and the Los Angeles Clippers. But again, Minnesota's coached by Chris Finch. They're not coached by Doc Rivers, so the opportunity to come back highly unlikely. I think Doc has lost 3-1 series leads. Chris Finch, not Doc Rivers, so that could be an issue here for Denver. But the question you had heading in was, how would the Nuggets and Jokic respond to their stinker in Game 3? Unfortunately for Denver, one, they did not respond very well, but that also got overshadowed where it's not the main storyline out of this game. And again, I was looking forward to this game. Then Dante DiVincenzo goes down with the torn Achilles. You feel devastated for him. And then right before the half, Anthony Edwards lands funny on his knee. He has to be helped off the court. That's an apparent hyperextension of the knee. We don't know the severity of it. Hopefully, it's not worst case scenario and like a torn ACL or anything along those lines. But you knew immediately what the case was here with Dante DiVincenzo, because we've seen it over the course of the last couple of years, right? I mean, you saw it with a couple of years. You saw it last year with Jason Tatum. You saw it with Damian Lillard. You saw the same exact move where those guys took a step forward. They collapsed right to the ground. So you knew what was going on with Dante DiVincenzo, and it just sucks for him, and it sucks for the entirety of the Timberwolves because he had been awesome up to this point. And even if Anthony Edwards is healthy long-term, let's say Anthony Edwards comes back 100% next game or next series, because they could probably rest him for a couple of games, still beat Denver with how disjointed the Nuggets look. But long-term, even if you get out of the first round, Anthony Edwards gets back to 100%, you're not going to be able to beat everybody without Dante DiVincenzo, right? You're going to need Dante DiVincenzo next round to beat San Antonio, in all likelihood it's San Antonio, or you get further down the line, you beat Oklahoma City. So unfortunately, long-term here this year, that seems to be wiped off the face of the map, even though you're feeling pretty good about everything else that happened with the Timberwolves here later today. But after Anthony Edwards and DiVincenzo got hurt, really you realize how deep this Minnesota team is. And that's a credit to Tim Connelly, who's actually the architect of the Denver team, right? And think about this if you're Tim Connelly. This was running through my mind if I'm watching that game. He constructs the Nuggets. He drafts Jokic. He drafts Jamal Murray. He trades for Aaron Gordon. He puts together one of the best rosters in the entire sport. And then he's allowed to walk away to Minnesota. The Cronkies don't pay him. They cheap out. So you're in that situation. You're an employee, and you leave because your work isn't respected, and you put together what would win the championship the next year, but that wasn't Calvin Booth's roster. That was Tim Connelly's roster, and you go to Minnesota, and he constructs the perfect roster to beat the Denver Nuggets, which they did back in 2024 in 7 games, the year after they won the championship, and they're about to do here again in embarrassing fashion. Think about how good that would make you feel that you get screwed over by your former employer and you're sticking it to him multiple times since. If Sirius fired me and then I was able to come back and not just have success in my new job, but also stick it to them at the same time, how good would you feel about that? So, I mean, you almost give Tim Conley the most credit for this victory here later tonight, but you learned how deep this team is. They lose two starters, including their best player, both guys in their backcourt. Yet, like, even if they didn't come back and win this game, and because I was processing this prior to the comeback, okay? I'm looking up and down and I'm saying, like, they're just like, killer ants. You stomp out a bunch and they just keep coming. I mean, you have Julius Randle, who didn't even have a great game tonight. You have Rudy Gobert. You have Jaden McDaniels. You have Naz Reid. You have Mike Conley, who came off the bench, and he's not what he once was, but he still at least does the smart things. As Legler was pointing out, one of the contests that he had, I believe, on a Tim Hardaway Jr. 3 in the third quarter. So he's always going to do the right thing. Bones Highland can get hot for you. And then you've got Ayo DeSumo, who Tim Conley gets at the deadline, while teams like Houston stood pat, didn't do anything. Teams like Denver, who they're beating right now, stood pat and did nothing. This guy had 43 points tonight on, what was it, 13 of 17 from the field? Or 13 of 17 from the field, 12 of 12 from the line. I looked it up just before I jumped on air. The most points he had ever scored in the game was 35, which he had done one time. He has one 35-point game tonight in the postseason when his team could have been in shock and you wouldn't have blamed them from Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo both going down. He steps up and he gives you that. So what a performance. You feel good for the kid. You'd also, and while you're giving Tim Conley credit for going out and getting him, you're scratching your head and saying, what the hell were the Bulls thinking? And that's why Chicago's where they are. That's why Chicago just fired their front office. This kid can play, and you can tell it's not a fluky thing. As a matter of fact, he was awesome in Game 3, and he backed it up in Game 4. And, I mean, again, these injuries are going to prevent them from making a deep playoff run, but good for Tim Conley with what he was able to build. He was the main reason that the Nuggets won their championship in 2023, and really it's the main reason why Denver's going to lose this series and might need to be blown up. If he doesn't make that move at the deadline, Ayo DeSumo, they lose the game tonight. They've got no real backup guard to this level. So they have strong front-end talent, obviously, with Edwards and Gobert and Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle, but they're super deep as well with athletes, with defenders, with guys that can score, with guys that can get hot fast, even like a Bones Highland is capable of winning a postseason game for you. I saw him play here in Boston earlier this year and take over the game, and he was fantastic, Bones Highland, when Anthony Edwards was out towards the tail end of the season. And it's not shocking, I guess, that they even won without Edwards tonight, because Edwards really hadn't done anything in the first 3 games significant, and they were still up 2-1, including a dominating win last time out. So credit to Minnesota for fighting through that. Credit to Ayo DeSumo. And again, we'll get to all 4 games that were played here today, varying degrees. We'll spend a lot of time on this one. We'll spend a lot of time on the Knicks' big win. We'll spend a lot of time on the Detroit Pistons falling as well, down 2-1. I mean, we're talking about Denver. Detroit's also a massive mess right now. But the main story heading into this night for Denver, Minnesota, prior to these injuries, was how would Denver respond, which is the most important thing, them as a team, and then how would Jokic respond, which was the most important thing for like the talk shows, right? Because Denver's not going to get killed as a whole, even though Jamal Murray will make an All-NBA team. He's not going to get killed as a whole. The guy that's going to get killed specifically is Jokic, and rightfully so. You're the best player in the world. You're in the MVP race. You have 3 under your belt. You're essentially in the prime of your career at the age of 31, a guy that I voted for again this year for MVP, as you guys know, 5th time I've done that in the last 6 years. You got to show up. And if the other team loses 2 of their starters, including their best player, you can't lose to them, especially when you're already down 2-1 in the series. You can't allow that to happen. It's on your watch. And he came out like a bat out of hell, and he looked awesome in the first quarter. He was good in the first half. And then the second half, he gradually got worse. Great first quarter, good second quarter, third quarter, and horrific fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, second half, he had 4 points. This is the greatest offensive player in the world. It's one of the greatest offensive players of all time. He had 4 points. 24 points overall, 8 of 22, 15 rebounds, 9 assists. Doesn't have any confidence in his three-point shot. Had 0 3-point attempts, I think, through the first 2.5 quarters. Maybe he took one towards the tail end of the third quarter. He took 2 more, really as the game was already decided in the fourth quarter. So there's something going on there with his legs or his touch, how he feels about the outside shot. And really, that's the case for everybody. Nobody's knocking down threes. They shot 6 of 29 tonight from beyond the arc. They were brutal. They got nothing off their bench. I mean, 16 points off the bench in this game. And again, Denver's never really had a good bench. I can't even count the points that Minnesota got off the bench because you got 43 from DeSumo, 17 from Naz Reid. I mean, the bench carried the starters in this game for Minnesota. But again, Jokic is going to get killed, deservedly so. He was not good. He wasn't horrible. He wasn't what he was a couple of games, like last game. But again, I crushed him, and I think I just was pretty difficult on him right there. But I crushed him after the Game 3 loss. I'm not going to go as hard at him tonight because, again, we did it a couple of days ago. And believe me, it's coming if they lose one more game in this series. You can, the whole team should get crushed, but Jokic is at the top of the list. Just like in 2011, we don't crush Dwayne Wade or Chris Bosh or Eric Spoelstra. You crush LeBron James, and deservedly so there. And deservedly so here if Minnesota can't win this thing. Or I should say if Denver can't win this thing. But it's just not Jokic. It's this entire roster. Like if Denver loses a series where there's no Anthony Edwards, there's no Dante DiVincenzo, the other team is without 2 starters, that's something you would assume is going to lead, if ownership cares, and they really haven't given you too much reason to believe that outside the firings last year. But if ownership cares, you would assume they're going to have to blow it up. And I give Jokic credit for staying in Denver, just like I give Giannis up to this point staying in Milwaukee. I gave Dirk credit. And I'm not talking about guys like Kobe and Duncan who played on amazing teams and there was no desire to leave. That's why I won't throw Steph in there. But guys like that, I give them the ultimate credit. But I'll also take a little bit of a shot at Jokic in that he's responsible for putting some pressure on the front office by saying, hey, go out and get guys or trade me. Go out and get guys or I want to leave. Like, so that's the opposite end of criticizing the guy that stays. I'm always going to crush the team hoppers like LeBron and Durant more than I'm going to crush the guys that stay. But the criticism of the guys that stay is put some pressure on the front office. But again, to me, the story tonight isn't necessarily Denver comes up short, Jokic comes up short. Certainly that's a story. Certainly it's worthy of discussing. Certainly it's worthy of heavy criticism. Shine the spotlight on Ayo Dosunmu. He's stuck in Chicago, and there's a lot of guys that have been stuck places in losing situations. Then they go to better environments, and they're taking off right now. CJ McCollum is a guy that is doing it. Kuminga did it for a couple of games, then didn't show up today. However, right? Alvarado lost in New Orleans, goes up to New York. He had a big game today. None bigger than Ayo Dosunmu. The guy is, now you know his name. Maybe you didn't know before. You know his name. He's turning into a star, not a superstar. But I mean, think about it. Anthony Edwards in this series. Anthony Edwards in his postseason career might not have had a game in the postseason up to this level. Ayo Dosunmu today played a game as good as Anthony Edwards probably has ever played in the postseason. Think about that. A couple of months ago, he's on Chicago. A couple of months ago, a lot of, like you guys do, because you guys are big-time NBA fans. We just watched 4 games. You're tuning into my show, so you guys are big NBA fans. But the person that's not a big NBA fan doesn't know who Ayo Dosunmu was. They do now. He was awesome. And just real quick, because we're going to run really long if I'm going to run through all 4 games and spend this much time on the first one. But Aaron Gordon, I told you a couple of days ago, I am a huge Aaron Gordon fan. Got to know him very well several years ago when I was working with him on a show called Year One, Sirius XM NBA Radio. I love the guy, and I wouldn't tell you that if I didn't, because I told you Stanley Johnson, I worked with him. I was not a big fan, and he's out of the league because his work ethic wasn't great. But the point is, I vouch for Aaron Gordon. I love the guy, I root for him. I give him absolute credit for being out there, but he can barely walk. He's got no explosion. He only played 23 minutes. He's going to be useless. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't even play in the next game. And even if he does make it through this series and Denver somehow wins the next 3, he's not going to make it through 2 months. So either way, it is over for Denver. I mean, most likely it's over because they're not getting out of this series. But even if they do, Aaron Gordon's just not magically going to get better with a muscle pull. That takes time to heal. Plus, he's had issues nonstop anyway. So that kind of takes Denver out of this series, takes Denver out of chasing a championship. And really, it's unfortunate because as fun as that game was for Minnesota tonight, as high as Ayo Dosunmu is riding, Minnesota really doesn't have a shot at the championship either. Because if they're not going to have Dante DiVincenzo, which we know for sure they won't, and perhaps Anthony Edwards, and it's not looking good, I'm sorry, they're not beating San Antonio next round, and they're certainly not beating Oklahoma City. So main storylines from the last game that we just saw, the injuries to Dante DiVincenzo and Anthony Edwards, the play of Ayo Dosunmu, and the Denver Nuggets on the brink of elimination against a team now that was without two guys in their starting backcourt. So we'll see how Denver responds. Then you could really crush them, especially if they don't win a game or two. Like at least force a 6 game. Don't lose this in 5. That's humiliating, especially after you won game 1. So that would mean losing 4 straight, and especially after they lose Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo. Okay, now Dante DiVincenzo's former team. The Knicks facing, just like Denver, the Knicks facing an immense amount of pressure today. Unlike Denver, they came through. And they responded like a team with title hopes should respond. Like you don't even want to give them too much credit. That's what they should have done. They're expected to get out of the Eastern Conference. They're expected to compete for a title. When you're down 2-1 to a 6 seed, you should win 114-98, which they did. And I jotted down a couple of questions. And I'll go, by the way, I'll go into your chat at the end and try and answer some of these chat questions, okay? And like I've said, you can leave your full comments over on YouTube. I'll get back to those. I've been writing in response to all of those the last couple of days. All right, we're in a lot of trouble here because I just noticed my battery is about to run out. So let me run and get my charger here, and I'll be right back. So this is our first technical difficulty of the Termity crashes out. So let me run, get the charger, and we'll be all set. 1 second. Thanks for bearing with me. Get the charger. All right, we're running to get the charger. All right, we should be good. I apologize. That's because I don't have a producer. I'm my own producer. Here we go. All right, we're back in business. My apologies. Okay, I'll go over the chat at the end. I'm almost as incompetent as Denver. All right, so here we go. All right, so now I hit the TV somehow. I hit the TV on. What an idiot. All right, so let's get into this Knicks game. So they're facing immense pressure, like we just said. And I kept my composure there. Typically, when there's an issue technology-wise that's serious, I flip out, I start yelling, throwing things. I completely lose my focus. But I jotted down a couple of things leading into the Knicks game that I wanted to know, right? So how did the Knicks respond, right? Well, Denver didn't respond well. Knicks, they responded as well as you could have imagined. That's what you wanted to see out of Denver today, what New York gave you. Secondly, would they make a lineup change here at the outset of the game? The starting lineup, would it change? And I had pushed for this, mid-season. Their starting lineup is not strong. You check out all the advanced metrics. Well, they stayed, and I would have done this as well. You don't want to panic too early. You mess with this in the regular season, not in game 4 of the postseason. So would they change their starting lineup? No, they did not do that. I also jotted down, how would Mikal Bridges look? Well, that one's a more difficult question to answer. It's not a yes or no. He was okay. And I see people here that jump on, like as I'm just looking at the chat. Are you going to criticize Jokic? You're just going to blame the rest of the team. Well, I did blame Jokic here a couple of minutes ago. I did on the show the other day at Sirius XM NBA Radio, and then I did prior to on the Termity Crashes Out. So well, look at this. We've got, is this Chuck D that's joining us? I know that I know that Chuck listens to the show. I don't know if this is the Chuck D, but Chuck, I appreciate you tuning in. We're about to talk about your Knickerbockers. So the Knicks with Mikal Bridges, he was okay. He was nothing special. And he actually only played 19 minutes. So that told you while Mike Brown keeps him in the lineup, and he did get on the board early, and Brunson made a nice play where he handed it off to him, allowed him to get a easy bucket to build his confidence. Okay. So that's a good thing. But only played 19 minutes, which I looked it up. It's the fewest minutes Mikal Bridges has played all season outside of that fiasco on the final day of the year where he played 23 seconds in order to allow his streak to continue. All right, so that's going to be a major topic moving forward is Mikal Bridges' role. And you don't want to lose his confidence. Like, you're going to need him. Like, Deuce McBride's great. Deuce McBride should play a role, but you need stuff out of Mikal Bridges. You need him to hit a shot at some point. You just want him to have confidence, feel a part of the team. So it'll be interesting to monitor his minutes moving forward, but I did like the decision for Mike Brown to not change the starting lineup. So that was another question. And then the other question, which impacted both the Hawks and the Knicks, was would CJ McCollum continue to be the best player in the series? And the answer to that was no. You know, like Josh Hart was fantastic today. And that's one of those guys you can't look at the box score and say, how did Josh Hart play? He was fantastic. Karl Anthony Towns was amazing. Alvarado was awesome off the bench. Another credit to the front office, just like we did with Tim Conley, the pickup at DeSumo. You got to do that for Leon Rose and the pickup here off the bench with Alvarado. Anunoby was incredible. And, you know, New York was even able to win despite Jalen Brunson not giving you a Jalen Brunson type performance. Like, Brunson didn't shoot well, turned the ball over a ton. It was not your typical Brunson day. So that's a pretty easy win, even without getting anything special from Brunson, which is a good sign because you know that Brunson at some point is going to give you another game or two where he's just absolutely fantastic. But the two guys to me, and I think anybody watching the game, if you said who were the two guys, like Minnesota, it's obvious. It's DeSumo. With New York, I would say two guys. Anunoby was spectacular. 22 points, seemed like he had 40, 9 of 16, only 3 threes, seemed like he had 7 or 8 threes. Okay, and especially he was so active defensively, active on the glass. Second chance opportunities. He's hitting the threes based off, off a Mitchell Robinson offensive rebound, off a Josh Hart offensive rebound. He was absolutely fantastic. Anunoby. And then Karl Anthony Towns basically turned into Bob Cousy out there, or basically turned into Jokic, although Jokic isn't giving it to you in the Denver series. The guy had a triple-double, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. There's Bob Cousy out there. Super aggressive. That might have been the most aggressive performance we've seen from him all season long. Maybe as a member of the Knicks. They let him initiate the offense. More guys were touching the basketball. He was by far and away the best player on the floor. And the level of aggression and the playmaking from Karl Anthony Towns was absolutely fantastic. And hopefully, that's a message for the Knicks to get him more involved here moving forward, because that's been the biggest topic all season. Why isn't Karl Anthony Towns more involved in the offense? He was your centerpiece of the offense. He was the facilitator. He was the hub. And it's one of the better games that you've played this year against a really good Hawks team with, a lot of pressure on you. But as good as Towns and OG were, it started on the defense. Right. And I mean, that's how you're going to, like a rat backed into a corner. You're fighting for your life. They gave up 44 points in the first half of this game. And only towards the tail end did Atlanta start, mounted a couple of extra easy buckets. But, in the first win, they gave up 102 to the Hawks. They won that game. Then they gave up 107, 109 in games 2 and 3. And then tonight they give up under 100. Gave up 98 points. So they were all over the place on that end, especially Josh Hart, Anunoby, and Alvarado. Alvarado had one of those, patented steals, Grand Theft Alvarado on CJ McCollum at one point. And, nobody could really get going. CJ a little bit, but even CJ was not as good as his versions from games 1 through 3. And everybody else was kind of a mess. And again, you could get on Leon Rose, just back to the Alvarado thing, you can get on Leon Rose from Mikal Bridges and that trade. No question about it. Because that might end up costing you Giannis. You gave him a huge contract. But at the same time, you have to give him credit for Alvarado at the deadline. Just like with Minnesota and DeSumo, really anybody could have had Alvarado. Got him for Dalen Terry, 2 future second-round picks, and cash considerations. And he had a huge impact on this one. especially when Brunson went back into the locker room in the third quarter with the ankle issue, right? But he was great. And again, all these midseason acquisitions. Alvarado with the Knicks, CJ and Kuminga for the Hawks, even though Kuminga didn't do well tonight. DeSumo for the Timberwolves, Luke Kennard for the Lakers. The teams that went out and tried to improve at the deadline are reaping the benefits. The teams like Houston and Denver that did nothing are both a mess. And then in regards to the Hawks, Nickeil Alexander-Walker really hasn't played well once. And I know we're given a ton of credit to CJ, as we should. He has easily been their best player. And make the argument he's been the best player in this series. Prior to tonight, he had been. But let's be honest, they're not supposed to be relying on CJ here. They're supposed to be relying on Jalen Johnson, and Jalen Johnson hasn't shown up yet. Jalen Johnson's a guy that I voted for second-team All-NBA. I thought he was the third best forward this entire season behind only Jaylen Brown and Kawhi Leonard. He hasn't done anything in this series, and tonight was his worst game yet. 14 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. That guy's a walking triple-double, 4 of 12 from the field, and this is really his first test as the guy on a playoff team. And right now, it has not been good. And again, like I said, I will go through some of these responses in a couple of minutes. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. And you just need better Jalen Johnson. And he'll learn. He's young. This is his first experiences as the guy on a postseason team. But either way, the version you saw today of the Knicks can beat anybody in the Eastern Conference. They're that good. And maybe game 3 was a wake-up call for them, the loss, right? A wake-up call that, this is the postseason. The playoffs has started. But they sent a message today to Atlanta, to maybe even the rest of the Eastern Conference, that they play like this, they can beat anybody. They play like this, they're probably the best team in the NBA, especially if Derek White's shot is going to be continuing to be an issue. Because Anunoby is the third guy behind Brunson and Towns. He's playing at a lot higher level than Derek White is the third guy behind Tatum and Brown. The only concern there, I would say, is twofold with the injuries, and they look to be okay. But, Brunson banged his knee there late when you could have made the argument he should have been off the floor. See how that responds. And then more concerning was Anunoby when he fell on his tailbone, right? That's something like similar to what Jimmy Butler did last year. It kept him out for a while. That could stiffen up over the course of the next couple of days. So I'd be a little concerned about that. And then finally on this, and then we'll get into the Magic and Pistons, the crowd down there was a joke. If you're a Knicks fan, good for you. You're a New York fan, good for you. But I feel bad for, the Hawks. I feel bad for the locals that do support the team. I mean, this is a team that's been around for, they've been in Atlanta for almost 60 years. They got there, I think, 1969, 1970, I think is when they made the move, somewhere around there. And the entire fan base is filled with Knicks fans. The entire arena filled with Knicks fans. That's nuts. Let's go Knicks chants. Deuce McBride, they go Deuce. Boos for some of the Hawks when they're at the free throw line. That's embarrassing. You hate to be a player and deal with that. And that's why you can't blame guys for wanting to play for organizations like the Knicks, the Lakers, the Celtics, even the Bulls, who can't get their act together, is you travel anywhere, you got a fan base behind you. Okay, so that's 2 games down, 2 more to go. Magic hold off the Pistons 113 to 105. And the first thing I thought of after the game was, the Magic losing to the G League Celtics on the final day of the regular season, and I was at that game. It was pitiful. That might have screwed over both the Pistons and the Knicks, if you think about it. Now, New York recovered today, but this matchup against Atlanta, they could still lose, and it put them in a situation where they have to face the Hawks instead of the Raptors, and the Raptors are much worse than the Hawks. So that loss could have screwed over the Knicks, and it definitely has screwed over Detroit, because now Detroit's down 2-1 in this series, and the Magic are a difficult matchup for Detroit, right? Like there are certain teams that maybe are better than Orlando, but they're just a worse match. It's like with Denver and Minnesota. Regardless, even if you think Denver is better, that's a horrible matchup for them, Minnesota. And the Magic are the same for Detroit. Like they can match their physicality with, they can match their defense, right? When they're healthy with Franz Wagner, who hit the 2 biggest shots today, they actually have more offensive firepower and more depth. It's almost like Denver and Minnesota. Okay, top-end talent with the top 2, Jokic and Jamal Murray, better than any duo for Minnesota. But then you start going the third guy, the fourth guy, the fifth guy, the sixth guy. That all belongs to Minnesota in that series, and it all belongs to Orlando in this series. Like the Pistons have the best player in Cade, but after that, the Magic have more weapons. They have more depth. And that's especially a problem if Cade Cunningham is going to struggle. And Cade struggled in this game. I mean, he turned it on in the fourth quarter to make the numbers look a little bit better, but he finished with just 27 points, 8 of 23. And for the second straight game, he was way too sloppy with it. What was it, 7 turnovers in game 2? I think it was 7 in game 2, and I know it was 9 tonight. You can't turn the ball over 9 times. So Cade has to be a lot more careful with the ball, especially now in the playoffs. You can't turn the ball over that many times. But again, the real problem for them is not Cade Cunningham. The problem is Jalen Duren. It's like the two Jalens. Jalen Johnson struggling for the Hawks in this series. Jalen Duren now as one of the guys. Now, Jalen Johnson's supposed to be the guy in Atlanta. Jalen Duren's just supposed to be the number 2 guy. I voted for him third team All-NBA. I know some people who put him on second team All-NBA. In my opinion, he was the third best center this season behind only Jokic and Wembanyama. But in this series, he's getting his, I won't even say butt, I'll say ass to make it stand out more. He's getting his ass kicked by Wendell Carter Jr. He's getting his butt kicked. And, game 1, 8 points. Like, he has not had one good game. 8 points, 7 rebounds, 3 of 4 in game 1. Game 2, 11 points, 9 rebounds, 4 of 10. And tonight, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 of 10. He is getting his head kicked in. And it's just not with, points. He's getting his butt, handed to him on the glass by Wendell Carter. Wendell Carter tonight had 14 points and 17 rebounds. Duren had 8 points and 9 rebounds. And Wendell Carter was just completely pushing him around inside. Wendell Carter even had one dunk that wrongly got called back towards the tail end of the first half where he slammed it home, I think on Isaiah Stewart. They called it offensive interference. It was not. He was a monster on the glass, kicking Duren's butt, manning up against Beef Stew, who's supposed to be the toughest guy in the league, and dominating him. So he's been fantastic. And again, Duren's supposed to be an All-NBA guy. And the second best player, not in like a 40-win team or a 50-win team, and a 60-win team. But right now, he looks like an absolute mess. And really, the only Piston, I would say, that played well tonight was Tobias Harris, right? 23 points, 8 of 16, hit a bunch of big shots late, but outside of him, and maybe a short stint from Paul Reed. I thought Paul Reed was good. Started the third quarter. I don't think anybody else for the Pistons played well. Meanwhile, the Magic, Paolo Banchero at the very least didn't shoot well, did a good job getting to the free throw line. Wagner hit the 2 biggest shots of the game late. Wendell Carter, like we said, thoroughly outplayed Jalen Duren, dominated the glass. Desmond Bane finally broke out. And, with Bane, I wasn't sure that it was going to happen. In the first 2 games, he was horrible. Amen Thompson was all over him. And that's why, I should say Asar Thompson. And that's why Asar Thompson finished 3rd in the Defensive Player of the Year voting. He was all over him. And I'm like, all right, he's not going to be able to get out of this. Last game, he shot, 2 of 11, I believe? But he was the best player on the floor tonight in this one for both teams. 25 points, 7 of 9 from 3. And you knew if he, they were a 1-1 series. He wasn't doing anything. You knew if he started getting hot, that would spell trouble for Orlando. And again, I honestly feel good for Orlando because Jamal Mosley had been, basically fighting for his job. And rightfully so. I think Jamal Mosley would admit that. The expectations were they were going to be a top 3 or 4 seed, compete for a championship. They barely get into the postseason. They're losing unacceptable games. He's going back and forth with Banchero towards the tail end of the regular season. Got one report saying he's going to get fired regardless of what happens in the playoffs. But who knows? I mean, if they continue to kick Detroit's butt, maybe he's able to keep his job. And it's real now a possibility they win this series. I didn't look it up. I'd have to go back and see what the odds are now. But they're the, they'd be the 5th 1 seed to lose to an 8 seed since the first round moved to best of 7. It was best of 5 in 99, 2000, and 1994 and 99. The Sonics were a 1 seed, lost to Denver. The Heat were a 1 seed in 99, lost to the Knicks. Those were best of 5. But the only teams that blew, 1, 2, and 8 when it was a 7-game series, Dallas in 2007, most famously, because they won 67 games behind Dirk versus the We Believe Warriors. The Spurs in 2011, the Bulls in 2012, but that had a lot to do with Derrick Rose's injury. The Bucks against the Heat in 2023. And some of that had to do with Giannis being banged up. But at this point, even if Detroit comes back to win this series, you have to be concerned. I mean, what happens when the competition improves? What happens when they have to face the Cavs next round, or the Celtics, or the Knicks, or the Hawks moving forward, or whoever they get in the finals? So this start to the postseason, probably could be going worse for the Pistons. They're down 2-1. What's saving them a little bit is, I guess, people will give more crap to Denver because Denver's got Jokic, even though they have the better of the two records. And if they lose, well, then Vegas got it right. Not right in that, they thought they would lose in the first round, but they were giving them the fourth best odds in the East. It was Boston 1, it was Cleveland 2, it was New York 3, it was Detroit 4. All the Detroit fans were calling up complaining, we should be given a better shot than this. Well, if you're losing in the first round, Vegas probably got something right. All right, so those are the first 3 games. Like I said, I'm going to go back through these comments, although there's 71 of them, so I won't be able to read all of these and do a question and answer. But again, YouTube, if you leave a comment there on the YouTube page, I will respond to that over the next day or so, okay? But let's be honest on this last game. I sat here and I watched 4 games today. I watched 3 yesterday, although the reason I didn't do a show yesterday, first day of the postseason I didn't, was because I went out and watched them with a buddy of mine. So I'll be honest with you. The 4 games today, the only one that I wasn't sitting there taking copious notes on was OKC and Phoenix. Made a business decision. You don't want to burn yourself out, right? Watching games from 1 o'clock until midnight, basically, and then doing the show. So the only one I was not all over was this one. And the series is just as lopsided as it gets. So you figured you could save some time there in your eyeballs. But clearly the 2 biggest things from this one, SGA, his play, 2, the Lou Dort trip on Devin Booker. On SGA, again, 42 points, 15 of 18. That's as efficient as you can get. In fact, I think I saw that it was the most efficient game by any player that's made at least 15 shots since Michael Jordan in Game 2 of the 1991 NBA Finals. So, I mean, especially to do that as a guard. Like if you do that in your Jokic, you do that in your Shaq, that's one thing. You're going to be super efficient as a 7-footer. To give you 42 points on 15 of 18 in the postseason, when you've got guys like Dylan Brooks chasing you around, is impressive. And I think that's what's infuriating about the foul baiting and the flopping with SGA, is the guy doesn't need it. He is as good of a guard as he is a historic guard. He doesn't need to do it. So I think that makes it frustrating. And today he showed you, because he was hitting some tough shots, and he went 15 of 18 from the field when he is the main focus of the opposition's defense. So, I mean, OKC doesn't, and the reason this game's not even close, I mean, think about it. OKC doesn't even need him to be good, and they're still going to win. Like, he was 5 of 18 in Game 1. They still won that game by 35 points. So what the hell do you think's going to happen when he goes 15 of 18 for 42 points? If they won by 35 points in Game 1, where SGA was 5 of 18, of course they're going to blow you out when he's 15 of 18. Then you have no shot. I mean, he could go up against the 2017 Warriors, the 96 Bulls, the 86 Celtics, the 67 Sixers. You're not going to beat that. The Thunder are going to beat those teams if he goes 42 points, 15 of 18. Now, granted, their defense is going to be a little bit better. And then quickly on the Dort trip, listen, I think both these things could be true. He is dirty. He is dangerous. I think what he's allowed to get away with is ridiculous. It's BS. At some point, he is going to hurt somebody. And I wouldn't have any issue with him getting suspended. So those are my thoughts on Lou Dort overall. On this specific play, I personally do not think it was on purpose. But again, he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, nor should he get the benefit of the doubt because of his history. So, and even if they did suspend him for the 4th game, Phoenix still doesn't have a shot. even if you're without Lou Dort and Jalen Williams. Okay, so let me read some of these responses here in the chat, and I will try and answer them if they're not too convoluted. OKC slightly Laker vulnerable next round. No, I would love it if they were. Listen, I don't root for OKC because listen, I'm the tank guy. I said they tanked, and it's come to fruition. Now you have a million teams tanking, but I also don't root wholeheartedly for LeBron. But I will say this: so I don't even know who I would root for in that series. Although I have rooted for the Lakers in this series. Rarely a LeBron team I'll root for. I rooted for him this series. One, because it was a good story as the massive underdog, and two, just because I can't watch any more Rockets. But I don't even think if Jalen Williams and take out one other, maybe even starter, right? Or just a guy like Alex Caruso, I still don't think the Lakers could beat OKC. That's how stacked OKC is. That's how stacked they are. We've got Detroit, from our buddy Sam, Detroit, one of the worst one seeds ever. I wouldn't go that far because we've seen some one teams probably win in the low 50s. They won 60. They have an MVP candidate. I will say the experience thing, though. Remember, it's been a talking point for a while that Detroit and San Antonio probably couldn't win the championship because historically, nobody wins the championship without at least getting past the first round once. So we did say lack of experience was going to be an issue. And I think lack of experience is an issue here. I don't know what open up super chats means, but I'll look into it. I'll type it into Google and hopefully we get that. So that's also from Sam. We've got blah, blah, blah from Chuck D. I don't know if this is the real Chuck D. Chuck, I know you listen to the show. I appreciate your support listening to us over on Sirius XMM Radio. If this is you, honored that you tune in for this. Cavaliers losing best regular season last year sent signals around the NBA. That sounds like something Chuck would say. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point because you look at the last couple of years, like there's a lot of upsets. And I think that's the parody of it, right? Like you're not as surprised. Like Philadelphia took the Celtics last night as a 7 seed, right down to the wire. Could have very easily won that game. Then you've got the 6-seeded Hawks had a 2-1 series lead over the Knicks. The 8th-seeded Magic have a 2-1 series lead over Orlando. So we're starting to see more, fluctuating in regards to upsets, which I think is a good thing, which is why it's so hard to go back-to-back right now, which, stinks. I don't know if it stinks. I think I'd like having a finals where there's like 2 powerhouses, but I love having the ability to see like upsets in early rounds. All right, so I mean, this was like the one night I should have been jumping on this live stream was last night, because last night was probably the best day of the postseason so far. You think about it, like Spurs, Blazers was awesome. Dylan Harper's breakout, that crazy finish to the Rockets Lakers game, LeBron with the big shot, all the stupid mistakes for the Rockets, Tatum, Pritchard, huge shots down the stretch for the Celtics. Feels so good for Tatum after everything he's been through. Anyway, I appreciate it. I got a little bit of a hang of Ron Holland's a bad top 5 pick, as Juan points out. Not only that, I mean, think about it. Detroit 60 wins. They whiffed on Ron. I don't know if they're going to say whiffed on Ron Holland. Hasn't panned out well yet. Not a stud, certainly. And they whiffed on Jaden Ivey. And they're still a 60-win team. And Detroit's a great sports town, so I do feel bad. I do feel bad for them. But it is nice to see Jamal Mosley gaining some momentum here after such a rough season. All right, so I appreciate everybody chatting. Leave ideas, too, over on the YouTube page, some different things you'd like to see me do. But we need to, post-game, this makes it simple. It's just turn the mic on, talk about the games immediately after they're over. I will do this as much as possible couple of breaks here or there. Most likely, I'll do it more consistently Monday through Thursday nights. It'll be a little spotty on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays because sometimes I am not, sitting there as in tune to what else is going on, or I'm watching with some other people. So I appreciate everybody stopping by. Like and subscribe, I think is what they say. We appreciate Deepak at DCLA out in Los Angeles for sponsoring us with the suits. You can find him at buydcla.com on the internet. So I think this is our longest one yet, 45 minutes. A lot of fun. Hopefully it's fun tomorrow with the 4 games. I'll try and hop back on the air tomorrow after the 4 games and talk to you guys then. Thank you for the support and have a good night, guys.